With the Return to World campaign going strong, the game has seen an influx of brand new and long-time returning players. The Monster Hunter series is overwhelming at the best of times, especially when one of the earliest decisions of which weapon to use has you picking from 14 options from the get-go. Whether you're a brand new, returning, or even seasoned player of Monster Hunter World, I'm going to go through every single one of the 14 weapons with a pretty in-depth breakdown, showing you proper active gameplay both in the training area and against actual monsters, discussing which ones are easier to get into and which ones are a little bit more harder to master. Demystifying the game and helping to reduce the overwhelm is kind of one of my things with the videos that I like to make. You might have caught some of my previous event roundup videos, which also aim to help players out. Just as a side note, over 99% of viewers on the channel here are unsubscribed, despite the overwhelming majority being returning viewers. It would mean the world to me. If you do enjoy the content, do subscribe to the channel. And with that said, let's get to it. First up, we've got the Greatsword, one of the signature poster weapons that you've likely seen on the front of the game, in various trailers and stuff like that. It's a slow, big-hitting, massive damage weapon that demands solid precision, good monster knowledge, and excellent timing. Your movement with the weapon is heavily restricted, you are quite slow, which is the trade-off for having the biggest single damage hits in the game. One of the key features of the Greatsword is that the attacks can be charged. Your standard 3-hit combo, which has your hunter planting its legs in place and delivering big overhead swings for massive damage, can either be immediately fired out or charged up. These are pretty modular, so knowing when you want to charge an attack and when you want to just instantly fire one out is going to be pretty beneficial to you, and will come with time. As these attacks do plant you in place, this is where your monster knowledge is going to come into play. Positioning yourself in such a manner where your attacks are going to connect in the first place, and you're going to avoid attacks as well, takes quite a bit of experience. Even more so because it's a pretty close range weapon where you're going to have to get in and personal. With the Greatsword, you are able to tackle. This allows you to attack through a monster's attack, giving you hyper armor for the duration of it, and also has an additional property that allows you to skip one of the attacks in the combo. For example, you could do one attack, a tackle, and then you'll be charging up the third attack, which is the biggest one to land. Usage of your tackle is going to be pivotal to avoid taking attacks that are going to knock you over and maintain a good amount of damage output for the duration of the hunt. It also feels super good. You do have alternative attacks as well, doing a wide slash, a jumping slash, useful different attacks for different situations, so you don't always need to be queuing up those big overhead Y attacks, whether you're firing them out instantly or charging them. Getting a feel of when to use what over some time and building that muscle memory will allow you to get the most out of the Greatsword. You can also block attacks, giving you some additional flexibility and breathing space, meaning you don't always have to dodge roll out the way or tackle through attacks. Your clutch claw attacks instantly tenderize after just one hit, and the massive amounts of damage are really helpful to get your part breaks as well, giving you more opportunities to stagger the monsters, have them recoil, topple them over, for you and your squad if you're playing multiplayer to get out more damage. Just an all-round fantastic weapon that really dishes out a lot of pain, but does demand a lot of precision, fantastic timing, and impeccable monster knowledge. With all of this in mind, I think the Greatsword is overall quite an advanced weapon to take out, not because of the inputs being complex, they're pretty straightforward, fairly simple to understand, but because without that experience and wisdom of how the monsters are going to behave, you're going to get slapped around a lot, and it's going to be mad annoying. If you want to start off with this, spend some good time in the training area, get loads of practice in, and try and get a feel of when to sheath your weapon to run around a bit and when to be in your active combat stance, where of course you'll be slower. Up next, we've got the super popular weapon, which is also incredibly anime, the Longsword. It's pretty quick hitting, has decent range, and gives you pretty good medium mobility whilst you've got it unsheathed. Using your standard combo, you'll keep swinging your sword around, slicing and dicing, and this alone will see you do pretty well and have a good time. All of your attacks that you land add to your spirit gauge. You can see this meter in the top left hand corner just below your sharpness, which has 3 additional levels on top of the base level that you start at. Your core gameplay with the longsword is once you've built up enough gauge, you fire out these attacks with right trigger called the Spirit Blade combo. Each one of these uses up some spirit gauge, is quick hitting, does good damage, has Mind's Eye so won't get bounced off the enemies, and eventually leads to you going up 1 tier in your spirit gauge level. You'll go from base to white to yellow to red. There are some really strong attacks you can do that will actually use up a level of spirit gauge. So if you've taken it up to level 3 at the red gauge with the biggest attack bonus, using one of these attacks will then bring it down to the yellow gauge. One of the attacks you can do after going into the special sheath stance, which you can only get into mid combo, will then give you the option of doing the EI Spirit Slash. A very powerful quick attack, which as we mentioned increases in damage depending on the level of your spirit gauge, and additionally has iframes as well if you time it perfectly. Doing so will give you invincibility during a monster's attack, so you'll avoid it completely, and also as a reward for your precision and super anime abilities, you won't actually consume the tier of gauge that you're at. This only works if you perfectly time it. This is crazy cool, because you can keep doing back-to-back level 3 red tier EI Spirit Slashes, cracking out crazy amounts of damage, provided you do it during a monster's attack to get the perfect timing iframe attack. Doing so without the perfect timing of attacking through an attack will consume a tier of the spirit gauge. The other attack you can do is the conventional special attack we've seen in the other titles, the Spirit Helm Breaker attack. You'll stab the monster, jump up into the air, and come down with a vicious slash that unleashes a flurry of attacks once it connects. Powerful, stylish, very flashy, and consumes the level of the spirit gauge. So your core gameplay with the longsword is building spirit gauge, using that to then level up the spirit gauge, and then when the opportunity arises, consuming levels of it to unleash super powerful attack. The longsword actually has another iframe, which you can only do mid combo, called the Foresight Slash. This requires you to have some spirit gauge, and will consume all of it that you have. It won't take you down a level from yellow to white, it'll take up all of the bar that you've accumulated. And again, very importantly, it requires that you have some bar as well. If you super stylishly Foresight Slash through an enemy's attack, you'll see that blue mist, you'll hear a ding, and you can go straight into the final attack of the Spirit Blade combo, the Roundhouse Slash. You have to connect this, but then you'll be able to instantly go up a spirit gauge tier. So by utilizing the Foresight Slash, you can forego the entire thing. You get a perfect dodge, you land the Roundhouse Slash, boom, you've gone up a level. A super efficient way to build spirit gauge level. There's other attacks as well that you can mix in that will help you fire out these attacks better, because the longsword demands that you're mid combo for a lot of these abilities. So utilizing your Fade Slash, your little quick thrust attack, piecing it together in a nice modular fashion will allow you to transform the fight into a song, into a dance, and it's got a beautiful rhythm to it. To pick up and play, the longsword isn't too difficult because you don't have to do all of these things. You can just go in and use the basic combo. Maybe you mix in the Spirit Blade attack as well. And honestly, that'll see you through. You'll have a good time, you'll do good damage. However, I'm sure you've picked up from all of my explanations leading up to this that the skill ceiling for longsword is very high, and there's a lot of really cool stuff that you can do with it. When you're mastering the EI Spirit Slash, the Foresight Slash, and when to mix all of them together with your Helm Breakers as well, your damage uptime is going to be massive, but it demands a very aggressive gameplay style. And once again, like the Greatsword, superior monster knowledge. Easy to pick up and play and have fun with, difficult to master and to become the one true anime lord. It requires 2 Clutch Claw attacks to wound apart, and goes through sharpness a lot for various attacks, including the Clutch Claw attack. Spend a bunch of time in the training area, and you'll be at Demon Slayer level in no time. Next up, we've got the phenomenal Sword and Shield. A super versatile weapon with fantastic mobility and an option to block as well. In terms of ease to pick up and play, this is absolutely top tier. When you jump in, you can do your Y combo and have a really good time. You can smash out the B combo and have a really good time. You can chain your Y combo to keep firing it out as well by using the lateral slash. Another very modular weapon, this time super close range, but also fires out incredibly fast, and you've got excellent mobility too. You'll be able to quickly sheath your weapon even if you don't have any of the quick sheath ability, and you can also use consumables whilst you've got your weapon drawn too. Doing the back step during a combo allows you to charge up a slash, which you can then use to launch yourself up in the air and then come crashing back down. Flashy, good damage, super cool. You can also, during the back step, instead of charging out the attack, you can come out with a leaping slash, allowing you to begin the perfect rush combo. This is a really high damage, very flashy attack, where with the perfectly timed inputs when your character is flashing pink, well, pinky red, allows you to dish out the highest amount of damage. And oh my goodness, the damage is crazy. Them adding this when Iceborne came out made it an absolute game changer for the Sword and Shield. SNS was already good, but I mean, goddamn, Perfect Rush is just out of this world. Without the Clutch Claw charm, you will need to do 2 Clutch Claw attacks to tenderize a part. That was a friggin' mouthful, that. And whilst it's amazing that you have the option to guard, it's not a particularly strong one when you compare it to the other weapons that have got guard functionality. This weapon is fantastic for newcomers. Its capacity to pick up and play with simple inputs, while still allowing the player to dish out an incredible amount of damage and be really useful for their team, is absolutely top tier. With some practice, the ability to naturally get out the perfect rush combo will take your Sword and Shield gameplay to the next level. This isn't super easy to do and it's not as accessible as the other features of the weapon, but with some practice, both in the training area and perhaps with some easier monsters that you know quite well, you'll pick it up in no time, I'm sure. Easy to pick up, relatively easy to master, a fantastic choice for all level of players. Up next, we've got the Dual Blades, another super fast, high mobility weapon that is just great to pick up and play and is so much fun. Given that your movement is not restricted, this is going to be a fantastic option for newcomers to pick up and try. It's pretty simple to understand, your inputs are not complicated, you've got combos that you can do with a Y attack, another string of combos you can do with a B attack, and a long flurry of slashes that you can do too with the Demon Flurry. You're able to go into Demon mode with the Dual Blades, giving you access to more powerful attacks, crazy combinations, and higher mobility as well. During this, all of your attacks are going to fill up the Demon gauge in the same spot as where the Longsword gauge is, and it looks the same as well, which when filled will enter you into Archdemon mode. This changes some of your regular attacks in regular mode into powered up demon attacks, and generally just increases your overall attack damage as well. Doing your best to maintain Archdemon mode as much as you can is going to overall increase your damage output. You'll need to do 2 Clutch Claw attacks to wound a part, unless you do the special Clutch Claw combo whilst you're in demon mode, which will give you a full instant wound, but won't drop the slinger ammo. So cool that it has that versatility that you're able to do both, with devastating fast combos that chain into one another. A crazy Beyblade ledge spinning attack that goes all the way down the length of a monster if you aim it properly. Huge capacity to do massive damage, especially if you build it out elementally. The same for any quick hitting weapon like Sword and Shield as well. Just makes the Dual Blade such a fantastic option for all levels of players. Easy to pick up because the combos aren't difficult to understand, doesn't require any complex inputs, just good timing, good positioning, especially the flurry attacks that land you in place, but still knowing that you've got the flexibility of all the mobility that it affords to get yourself in and out of there whilst you're dealing tons of damage, allowing you complete control and flexibility. I'd say the Dual Blades are pretty easy to pick up and they're going to be kind of medium to master, but definitely a solid choice for all player levels. Give them a spin, they're super fun, and I think it's a great way to get into elemental weapons. Plus you get a Naruto run when you're in demon mode. Sold. Up next is one of my personal absolute favorites, the hammer. Even just saying its name invokes inspiration. A wonderful weapon choice that's really easy to pick up and play, gives you medium mobility with medium to slower attacks as well, but probably not as slow as you'd think. After taking it out and committing to the Brotherhood of Bonk, you'll see that the inputs for your combos are pretty straightforward. You've got your standard Y combo, and just doing this will see you have a good time and output an incredible amount of damage, very quickly too. There's also a very strong combo attack that you can do which plants you in place called the Big Bang attack, which requires each of the previous hits to land in order to carry on the sequence. If you can get off the full combo, it's the strongest attack the hammer can do. You're able to begin the Big Bang attack from various other attacks as well. You're also able to wield it in a charged state, giving you access to various different attacks depending on how long you charge it for. This charged state can also be leveled up into another charged state with a simple press of the button, and I can't really see why you wouldn't wouldn't want to do the power charge. In power charge, when you've held it down to charge level 3 and you stop moving your character, you get access to this fantastic triple hitting spinning attack, of which the last hit does a tremendous amount of damage. This can also be chained together with a super cool spinning clutch claw attack, dealing even more damage and getting off a nice juicy wound. All clutch claw attacks with the hammer do instantly wound, helping your squad maximize the damage on any monster. Hammer users aren't called the Kayokens for no reason. They're probably not called the Kayokens at all by anyone other than me, but that's besides the point. It has one of, if not the very highest capacity to stun. I know Hunting Horn's pretty wicked with that too. You dish out a ton of KO damage, with some attacks more than others, leading to monsters toppling over in a KO state. This on top of your wall bangs, on top of your mounts, on top of your part breaks, which it's also awesome for, means more high damage window opportunities for you and your squad. It is a very short range weapon, and a lot of your attention is going to need to be focused on the head, so you can be in danger using the hammer quite a bit, but it's super worth it. Relatively low commitment, quite quick attacks for huge amounts of damage. Easy to understand inputs as well, not overly complex. It's just an all-round fantastic weapon. You can queue up a nice little looping attack when you jump off the ledge as well, a nice quick punish, and also a means of mounting the monster super easily too. This is a fantastic choice for new and experienced players. The entire broad spectrum of hunters. Everyone should try out the hammer. It's so much fun and it's so satisfying. And then you get to say that you're a member of the Dong Dojo. Up next, we've got a close cousin of the Unga Bunga, the fantastic Hunting Horn. This weapon is something else. It is totally unique. A support-based weapon which plays out various songs, providing team-wide buffs, while still cracking out incredible damage and huge amounts of KO as well. It's like being a member of the musical Boink Brigade. You're going to want to be aware of what melodies you can play with a specific Hunting Horn. This is likely the most important part of the decision of which Hunting Horns to even craft in the first place. On top of your affinity, your raw damage, is it elemental, etc. There are 4 notes that you can play, and then the performance right trigger button as well, meaning that the Hunting Horn has got 5 different attack input buttons. The different notes have different attacks as well, which interact with each other in a slightly modular way, and can also change depending on how you're tilting your analog stick too. So just the inputs alone are very complex, and it's going to take some time to understand and quite a lot of practice in the training area. The core gameplay of the Hunting Horn is to smash the shit out of everything in front of you, whilst dancing around and playing a beautiful melody at the same time. You can see which songs your horn is able to play, both in the equipment menu, but also in the top right hand corner whilst you're out in a hunt, as your handy melody cheat sheet, allowing you to play out the notes of the melodies to then perform them and give everyone the buffs. You can queue up multiple melodies at the same time, perform them all by holding down the performance button right trigger, giving you multiple buffs at once. When performing melodies, either individual ones or multiple ones like we just talked about there, you can even do an encore where you hit right trigger again after they've played to give you a souped up, powered up version of each of those buffs, making them stronger and I think lasting longer as well. Not to be confused with maybe somewhat typical support roles in other games, Hunting Horn players are still very much active attacking characters. You are supposed to be getting in there and hitting your swings against the monster. Sure, you maybe want to queue up a song or two outside of combat or away from danger, but for the most part you're supposed to be getting in there and landing your attacks like it were a hammer. One cannot bonk without hitting the monster. In the right hands, this weapon has an enormous amount of damage output and really dishes out a lot of KO as well, even rivaling the hammer. It can be one of the best, most powerful weapons in the game. True enough of every single weapon, but particularly worth mentioning since it is a support weapon. Your mobility is about medium and your clutch claw attacks instantly wound, whilst also dealing a good amount of damage. You should get plenty of part breaks with a Hunting Horn as well, provided you're connecting your hits, and plenty of KOs. This is going to be really tough to pick up and play for newcomers, both to the game and to the weapon. It is highly complex. There's a lot of moving parts to it. So if you are wanting to take the Hunting Horn out, get yourself over to the training area, have a really good read of the hunter's notes, and have a nice practice over there. Definitely on the harder side to pick up and to master. Up next is one of my personal favorites again, with one of the best defense defensive capabilities, if not the very best, the lance. Funnily enough, this is actually an incredibly aggressive weapon. Due to your ability to block attacks, counter attacks, and stay right in front of the monster's face, you're able to achieve a very high damage uptime, stabbing away at the monster in between your blocks and counters. You've got your basic attacks with the straight frontal jabs. You also have a slightly elevated jab, helping you to hit higher up, and these work in a modular fashion. Your clutch claw attacks instantly tenderize the monster, and you also have a clutch claw counter stance that you can get into, which if you're hit during, will have you Spider-Man over to the monster's part, giving you a nice high damage instant tenderize. Once you've landed the clutch claw counter, you cannot be shaken off, but you can be damaged, so just be careful because this might cart you. As well as your regular block, you can get into a counter stance, which automatically fires out a counter jab when attacked during. You can also get into a perfect guard stance, which is an omnidirectional block regardless of which way you're facing. It's also a more powerful block, which also charges up a strong jab attack. You can charge at your foe like some sort of jousting maniac without a horse, and do various attacks which allow you to advance, some of which also whilst blocking. Your normal movement is quite restricted whilst you've got your weapon unsheathed, and sheathing the weapon is very slow without any quick sheath. However, by using your hops, your skips, and your charges, more than makes up for this. Lance is great for newcomers, pretty easy to pick up and play, with simple to understand input combinations, and provides a lot of breathing room with the capability to block attacks. It's only when we're looking at increasing your uptime and playing highly aggressively with the lance that I would say it becomes more complex and something you're definitely going to need to practice at doing. So easy to pick up, medium to master. That's not to say that it doesn't have a high skill ceiling, it does. Watching a good lance player is like watching art. Very elegant and very fast paced. Up next we've got the gun lance. Similar to the lance but with extra freedom. A super fun weapon that does have quite a bit more going on with it. Whilst also having the capacity to block, it doesn't enjoy any of the counter attacks that the lance does. Instead, you can blow stuff up. Your basic combo is easy enough to understand, pretty straightforward simple inputs to get some nice jabs in there, some very strong swinging attacks as well that you can do, where you can unload all of your shells at the end of a hit. These make for some pretty high damage but quite quick attacks. As well as the burst fire combos when you unload your shells, you can continue those swinging attacks to fire out a worm stake cannon, embedding into a monster so you'll need to be up close for some nice juicy damage. With some slinger ammo you can load a worm stake blast, which will latch onto the monster and explode for additional damage each time you do these shelling attacks. Also interacting and engaging with other hunters doing various other attacks. It's a fantastic means of getting out just all this extra damage. Super nice. Your mobility is pretty low whilst you've got this unsheathed, and unfortunately you can't charge around the place. 2 clutch claw hits to tenderize, and the block is really solid, albeit simple. A fantastic weapon that is a lot of fun once you've figured out the intricacies of all the different sort of shelling attacks and stuff, but isn't going to be super easy to grasp, so you're going to need to take yourself off to the training area, read through the hunter's notes, and really practice a bunch. I'm going to say this is a medium to pick up and play and a medium to master. Up next, we've got the switch axe, lovingly called the swag axe. This thing is a doozy. A super fun weapon that has a giant axe mode where you'll be cleaving and swinging around at the monsters, dishing out tons of damage with pretty easy to understand input combos. Your mobility is pretty low, but you do have gap closing attacks that will help make up for this. In the axe mode, you've got these slow, heavy hitting attacks with really good range that just crack out a great amount of damage. You can also get into a wild swing combo attack, allowing you to root yourself in place and just go at it. After a few of these, you can do an attack out of this which will actually charge up the axe form, allowing you to flinch monsters easier and possibly a bit more damage in axe form as well, not sure on that. You can also morph it into its giant sword form, which is quicker and really deadly. Landing attacks in this form will deplete the gauge, but will also increase the sword form's amped gauge. If that fills out, it gets the file's effects added onto the sword form attacks. Extra damage in some shape or form. If the bar depletes, you'll go back into axe form, where it'll regenerate so you can morph back into the sword form. Speaking of, there are some fantastic morph combos you can do out of various attacks. These are really flashy and super high damage, so knowing which ones you can do when are going to be pivotal for your switch axe gameplay. You can also do the elemental discharge attack, which can latch onto the monster part that you connect with and unleash an attack called the zero-sum discharge, which is a really powerful explosion. A fantastic attack, it's super good stuff. The switch axe is a really fun weapon that looks absolutely killer. You're gonna have a blast playing with it. It's not overly complicated to pick up and go out with. You'll be able to have fun swinging it around in axe form, but it's got a lot of moving parts to juggle at the same time. Multiple gauges at once, 2 different forms. That side of it will definitely take some practice. As with any weapon, but particularly for the ones that aren't overly beginner friendly, take yourself off to the training area, read through the hunter's notes, get some really good practice in first, and then practice some more against some actual monsters. It's going to be pretty straightforward to pick up and play, but pretty tough to master all the intricacies. Oh boy. Speaking of tough to master, up next we've got the Charge Blade. This is a giant sword and shield that transforms into a giant axe. It is super badass and capable of dishing out so much damage. In its base form with a sword and shield, you've got pretty good mobility, with some sliding and advancing attacks which help you move whilst attacking. In terms of that, it's got really good mobility. Your attacks in sword and shield form are pretty strong, pretty fast, with a short range, and they will add charge to the weapon. You'll see the files start to change color. As these charge from yellow to red, you're able to store the files, allowing you to expend them for attacks or to use them to juice up your shield. Powering up your shield gives you access to do other things, like powering up your sword. I believe this increases the damage of your sword attacks and also increases the guard capacity of your shield. It gives you guard 2 or something like that. It also allows you to do some of the big damage attacks. You've got the classic super axe elemental discharge, which is a big slam attack into the axe form, cracking out into the monster and exploding all of your files into it. Huge damage, fantastic attack, super flashy. Quite a long wind up and hard to find a window for. Or alternatively, you can also transform your axe into Savage Axe mode, which makes it a spinning pizza cutter thing. Pretty cool. Just swinging this around is so powerful, so damaging. It will slowly consume up files, and any attacks that actually expend files and fire them out will also use up more. You can continually combo in this state, or you can similarly wind up an elemental discharge attack. This is such a complex weapon with so many different levels and so much to manage all at the same time constantly. At its basic level, if you take it out and play it in the sword and board form, you're gonna have a pretty good time. Easy enough to understand combo inputs, an ability to block, and good mobility attacks. But when you add all these different layers of charging up your weapon to store the files, to charge up the shield, to charge up the sword, to either do the SAED or to go into Savage Axe, like it's a lot. So I'm gonna say this is okay to take out as a beginner, but it's gonna be a super complex weapon to learn and to master. Lots of time in the training area, lots of practice, reading through the hunter's notes, and perhaps even supplementing it with a few different video guides as well. But once you crack it, this is a super high damage weapon that is so stylish and so much fun to play. Oh my goodness. There's even additional levels on top of what I've mentioned here, like guard points and stuff, where certain windows within your certain attacks will actually block the monster's attack and charge up the weapon at the same time. But that's advanced on top of advanced gameplay, like it's crazy. Just be cautious, this weapon can really overwhelm people, and if it's too much, come back to it later. Up next, we've got the fantastic Insect Glaive, a polearm that lets you vault around the place, whilst unleashing all manner of slashing, spinning attacks. It's super cool. The combo inputs are pretty easy to understand. At a base level, you've got the Y combos, you've also got the really powerful B combos too, and an ability to mix and match in between. When you were equipping the weapon, you may have noticed stuff about the kinsects. There is a bunch behind that. On a surface level, during the fights, you can send this bug out to harvest a different color extract. If you get the red, it'll power you up. If you get the white, you can move better, and with the orange, you get knockback prevention whilst attacking. Super useful to basically get all three. You send your bug out, your kinsect, to harvest the different extracts by hitting different body parts of the monster, and then power yourself up. You can also consume slinger ammo to help power up your kinsect for various effects too. Doing all this effectively supercharges you into being a super Insect Glaive user. Some of your attacks transform and have a more powerful variant to them that notably do some really cool stuff. You're gonna find that that you want to basically be charged. Having all three active also gives you an additional hybrid effect for combining the three of them. The attacks are absolutely killer. You'll be slashing away, doing all sorts of crazy things, whether you're sticking with the Y combo, or the powerful B combo, or mixing the two up. The pole vault attacks allow you to stay up in the air a lot too, consistently dishing out damage whilst also evading the monster's attacks, giving you good opportunities to slam down with powerful spinning attacks and get off a ton of easy mounts. Mounts, as we know, give you a fantastic window to get loads of damage out. Just all round super useful whether you're playing by yourself or in a squad. You do need 2 clutch claw attacks to tenderize apart. However, the clutch claw attack itself is pretty fast and it's really powerful. Great range, some of the best mobility in the game, if not the very best. Multiple high damage combos you can string together, particularly when a monster's downed. You go from one into the other and just dish out so much damage. Super fun, super stylish, mega anime. This is a fantastic choice and everyone should definitely check out the Insect Glaive at some point. Funnily enough, I'm actually super late to the party with it myself, but I'm so glad I've tried it out. This is great for beginners to pick up and play in that the combo attacks aren't hard to understand. The inputs are simple enough. You press Y a few times or you press B a few times. However, when it comes to managing the other elements of the weapon, extracting the different essences from the different monster parts, making sure that you're charged up, it does become a little bit more complex. And just wrapping your head around all the different kinsect elements in your equipment screens and stuff, it's a little bit more than your basic weapon. I would say super friendly to pick up and play and have a good time with, but medium to understand deeper, get comfortable with the pole vaulting gameplay, which does have you moving around very quickly and can feel a bit wishy-washy when you're not used to it. And onto the ranged weapons. Up first, we've got the light bow gun. This is a phenomenal weapon and an absolutely brilliant choice for beginner players. Super easy to pick up and play, and transforms Monster Hunter into somewhat of an FPS. In the weapons equipment info before you go out on a hunt, you'll be able to see the size of the magazine for each ammo type. This differs between light bowgun to light bowgun and will be one of the main points of consideration when it comes to crafting them in the first place. Depending on the rarity of the weapon, you can equip a certain amount of custom mods. These can range from helping with the recoil, reloading it faster, doing more damage up close or at range, and a bunch of other things. The weapon is fantastic. Take it out, point, and shoot. You've got the standard normal ammo 1, which is your infinite ammo, very low damage, no frills, but you can use it as much as you want. Then you have a bunch of different ammunition, which is actually a consumable, but you can buy these from the vendor for very, very cheap, so don't worry about that. You'll want to take a look at what ammo type has a good magazine, and if that matches with what you want out of your light bowgun. Some of the ammo types will be powered up and will have multiple hits in one go, and some might be a single shot, kinda not so useful. You benefit from high mobility with this weapon. You're going to generally need to be quite close to be within effective range. You can tell this whilst you're aiming down the sights, both of the circles need to be lit up. Otherwise, your damage will be negligible. You'll need to do 2 clutch claw attacks to get off a tenderize, and there are some pretty fun things you can do, transforming your typical wyvern blast attack where you normally shoot into the ground up to 3 times, and it does additional damage based on the attacks that you're dealing, into this counter blast attack where you propel yourself backwards and deal a ton of damage immediately. Super cool. This will help you keep a little bit of distance, allowing you the breathing room to participate in a fight, but not as close as you would be with a melee weapon. An excellent choice for hunters who want to participate but are maybe a little bit overwhelmed. Take this out, go into multiplayer, you will have a blast. Managing your different ammunition and understanding the information that's available before you even go out on a hunt, looking up on the equipment info, seeing what the magazine size is for the various ammunitions, making sure you're taking that ammo out with you whilst you're actually on the hunt. All these things require a little bit of a learning curve, but in terms of the core gameplay of just taking the weapon out, really beginner friendly. Understanding more of the intricacies, more of a kind of a medium learning curve. But overall, easy to medium, definitely give this one a go, especially if the range element of it appeals to you. Next up, we have the heavy bow gun. Similar in many ways to the light bow gun, but a chunkier, heavier version. Your mobility is drastically reduced here, but you do have a really nice big dodge roll. It's got better range than the light bow gun, and similarly, you can equip various mods to it too. You're going to be looking at similar things over here in the equipment information before you even take it out, or perhaps even before you craft one. So if it looks like your weapon really performs well with normal ammo 3, make sure you take out normal ammo 3. For example, point, aim, shoot. Make sure you're in effective range. Try out different ammo. There's the spread fire, which is kind of like a shotgun. Slicing ammo, which can get tail cuts. Cluster bombs, which is basically just ordering like a missile airstrike. All sorts of super cool stuff. Heavy bow guns can also have different special attacks. You can turn it into a machine gun mode where you just rapid fire loads of damage out, which is super fun. And you can have this crazy sniper shot, which fires a very powerful piercing attack, exploding for a bunch of hits and really good damage. Like the light bow gun, this is a really fun weapon to pick up and play. There is a bit of a learning curve with all of the information that you need to get a hold of before you even take it out. If you even want to understand those elements to it, you don't have to. You can just take it out and go. And you can build each heavy bow gun to your own style with the custom mods as well. It's really nice that the clutch claw attack is so powerful and that it's an instant tenderize, providing another reason why it's such a great weapon for group play. It's going to be fun to pick up and play if you don't really know what's going on with it, but it's going to be a medium difficulty to understand everything and get to grips with it, especially when we start talking about crafting this special ammo on the fly, like sticky bombs or cluster bombs, stuff like that. It all gets a little bit more complex and you've got more things to manage and think about. Last and definitely not least is the fantastic bow, a brilliant weapon with great mobility, allowing you to stay at a somewhat medium range, but still pretty close overall. You can apply additional coatings to bows for various additional effects, and given that they're such a multi-hitting, rapid-firing weapon, they really benefit from elemental as well. Your clutch claw attack requires 2 goes to wound, and it's a pretty nifty attack with good damage. As well as consistently firing out your shots, you're able to charge each individual shot if you like, increasing their damage, and you can also press B to do some different shots as well. The charging sidestep is super useful for your mobility, and will charge the next attack that you do as well. Mixing up these different shots, all the while managing your stamina, because the bow does rapidly deplete your stamina, will allow you to really enjoy the weapon's flexibility and get the most out of it. You can also line up a Dragon Piercer attack, which is a big winding piercing attack that travels through the length of a monster. Very useful to fire this out when the monster's downed and you are directly facing in front or behind it. So long as you can manage your stamina, this weapon allows you to get out some of the best damage in the game, whilst having great mobility, being super stylish, and keeping relatively safe. But managing your stamina will be a challenge, so building around the stamina consumption, and perhaps using some consumables wisely, could really help with that. Really fun and simple to pick up and play, but as with all of the weapons, it's got a tremendous skill ceiling as well. I'm going to say this is an easy one to pick up and play, and relatively easy to get really good with too. Highly recommended for all players across the whole breadth of the spectrum of experience. And with that, that is all 14 weapons covered. Hopefully this has been helpful and provided you with some insights into which weapons you maybe want to try out. If there's anything I've left out about any of the weapons that you feel is important to know, do be sure to put it in the comments so we can all learn from each other. Honestly, sometimes things just slip my mind. They're in the recordings, I just fail to remember them. Thank you so much for watching. As mentioned at the beginning of the video, over 99% of the viewers on the channel are unsubscribed, despite the vast majority being returning viewers. It would mean the world to me if you do enjoy the videos, do subscribe to the channel, and you'll get more action RPGs, roguelikes, and MMOs, including tons of Monster Hunter World, and some other goodies. If you want to join the open lobbies during the live streams, you can also follow on Twitch, and I've opened up the Discord community to everyone, so come say hi there and let's get some hunts together. This has been a long one, folks. I've been recording this for such a long time, both all the game footage and the audio, but it's been super worth it. So until next time, I'll see you in the new world.